This is Diana Sullivan in Austin, Texas. I've got another lesson today on how to cast off in ribbing. Now, if you're following along and making the swatches, what I've done here is about a dozen rows of English rib. It's knit one, purl one, English rib, and I have it set to tuck on the ribber in one direction and knit the other direction. But these instructions on how to cast off at the beginning of a row in ribbing are the same no matter what needle arrangement you're using. Now suppose that the directions say to cast off 4 stitches on each side of the knitting. To do that, I need to cast off on the carriage side. So what I'm going to do is cast off 4, then go over to the left and cast off 4 more. I have zoomed in to the right hand side because my carriage is on the right and I'm going to cast off here first. So the first step is to transfer the stitches up to the main bed that I'm going to cast off. So to get 4 of these stitches off, I need to transfer 2 from the ribber because that way I'll have 4 that I can take off. 2 from the main bed, 2 from the ribber, and they're going to leave this needle with a stitch. So I just transfer these up, and because I was an English rib, on these 2 stitches from the ribber I have a double loop, and I'm zoomed in really close so I think you can see that. Now you could use any cast off that you like, and because I can use any cast off that I like, I'm going to use my favorite on the bed cast off, and it's where I transfer the second stitch over to the first needle, and then I move them both in, put both of those stitches on the second needle, and then I knit through. And that's one cast off. Then I transfer the second stitch to the end needle again, move them both over to the second needle, and then get this yarn and then knit that through. So that's 2 cast off. Three cast off, and now the 4th one's the last one. The one caution that I would have for you as you cast off ribber stitches is just make sure you don't get caught any place on the gate pegs. Now, as always with that particular cast off, it is not necessary to knit through the last stitch because as I go across with the carriage, I will knit through the last stitch. Here I am over on the left end of the knitting. Change the camera focus so that I can cast off 4 stitches at the beginning of this row. And the first step is just the same. Move the stitches up to the main bed, that is, the ones I plan to cast off. So now I have 5 stitches in a group on the main bed, and I plan to cast off 4, so I'm going to end up with only 1 stitch left on the main bed. So it's that same cast off. I transfer this stitch, the second stitch, over to the first needle. And I do it in this order because it makes a good looking cast off. After I transfer the second to the first, then I move them both over to the second needle, and then I knit through. And that's 1 stitch bound off. And I do it again. Of course I could use a regular transfer tool, but I have the double-eyed tool handy because I had to transfer these stitches from the ribber up to the main bed first. And then this will be the last one. And as I mentioned earlier, once I get these stitches transferred to that second needle, I don't have to knit it through because the carriage will knit it through as I proceed with the knitting. Now I'm going to do at least a dozen more rows of knitting and in this English rib and take it off and show you how that turned out. Here's that sample where I cast off on one side, then knitted across and cast off on the other side. And it makes a really nice, tidy cast off on either side. I want to zoom in really close on that left-hand side so that you can see the chain that forms along the top of the cast on. See the little chain stitch? And now I'll come over to the right side and show you that the chain stitch formed across the top of the right-hand side. This, of course, being English rib, is actually quite bumpy looking here on the right side. But let me pop it off these gate pegs and show you the wrong side, just so that you can have the contrast. That's how the wrong side of it looks. Again, it's a good tidy thing on both sides, that particular cast off. And with English rib, normally the bumpy side will be the outside. Even though I demonstrated this in English rib, this is good with any needle arrangement at all of ribbing. You just transfer the stitches up to the main bed and then use an attractive main bed cast off, like this transfer tool cast off with the chain edge. So that's how to cast off a few of the stitches in ribbing and continue to knit.